South Melbourne Beach. We don't seem to have fogs like that anymore, which must say something about Melbourne air nowadays. But back in May 1920, it was so thick you could barely see more than 3 ships together. Yet it never dented anyone's enthusiasm, and what better time to invest in a new Kodak camera? At 14 shillings and sixpence plus a roll of film, you could have amazing memories. For out there on the bay was a fleet of warships, almost the entire strength of the Royal Australian Navy, soon to be reviewed by no less a person than the Prince of Wales himself. Dudley Ricketts was a young petty officer aboard the submarine depot ship Platypus, and he was very much aware of the need the officers felt for everything to be absolutely tiddly, paint perfect and brass shining. As coxswain of the motorboat, he had made sure that the fog would not upset his operation, so he took compass bearings from the adjacent ships before the fog became too thick. As a result, he could always find his way back and even help the boats of the other warships that were helplessly astray. Indeed, he could take an officer to any ship when their own boats failed to turn up. With the young man's flair, he might be racing up to St Kilda Pier, appearing to the watchers out of the strands of mist as though he must surely hit the piles. Girls screamed and others shouted warnings, but with a twist of the wheel and a hand on the throttle, he would swing the boat and come neatly alongside with a grin on his face. But where was the Prince? His ship, the big battle cruiser Renown, was groping for the heads in the fog, and Admiral Halsley considered it too dangerous in the circumstances to take her through. The 3 destroyers sent to look for him were having an equally baffling time as their radio operators worked on their cross bearings. Aboard the Platypus, Dudley was watching the cruisers Brisbane and Sydney, anchored nearby, starting to roll, just a little at first, but finally to the extent that their boat booms were dipping in the water. It was the destroyers coming. Racing at speed up the bay, they were creating a great wash, and it was heading for the shore. Lieutenant Stan Veal of Albert Park, who was preparing to head a guard of honour, could see all the people on South Melbourne Beach wet to the knees, scrambling for safety from the mini tsunami onto Beaconsfield Parade. Not having any way of finding out what was going on, he'd marched his squad up and down by New Pier at Port Melbourne several times. But as the day was cool, they didn't mind the exercise. Nevertheless, it was a relief that the guest of honour was finally there, so that Digger Prince arrived in the land of the Anzacs in the ship that bore their name, HMS Anzac, and in due course made a formal entry to Melbourne from the paddle steamer Hygeia at St Kilda Pier. Enormous crowds who had waited for hours along the processional route had cheers for him and mixed cheers and boos for Prime Minister Billy Hughes in the following carriage. It was the same weather at night when, at a rocket signal from the flagship Australia, all the ships were suddenly revealed outlined in lights. People who had crowded onto the cable trams stood on the beach full of wonder until the curling tendrils of fog came again and the ships slowly vanished, as the German fleet itself had vanished in the Great Battle of Jutland almost exactly 4 years before. Some small girls were heard to complain they wished they'd stayed at home. When the fleet review was held on Friday the 28th of May, the order had gone out that all ships were to have their boats hoisted in to look smarter, and the Liberty men were being ferried on board on tugboats. The first lieutenant of the Platypus did not want to lose the use of his motorboat for so long, so he told Dudley to take it away and be back when the formalities were all over in mid-afternoon. This was a real windfall, so Dudley and his mates collected the makings of a good picnic, picked up some pretty girls at St Kilda Pier, and took themselves off down the bay for the duration. It was certainly better than standing to attention alongside the ship. The whole space between St Kilda and town piers was filled with yachts and small craft, and for those watching from the beach it was very grand. Led by the spotlessly white-painted torpedo boat Countess of Hopetown, last of the old Victorian colonial navy, the Prince's yacht Franklin passed through the lines of ships, the men of each cheering in turn as a 21-gun salute was fired. they could come out again at night for the searchlight display and the ships lit up. It was a great event, never to happen again, but the memory is still with us in Prince's Pier, lined for the occasion for its entire length by boys from the training services, its name changed to honour the royal guest. And it is very pleasant still to stand on South Melbourne beach, though without the sound of foghorns, and to look out across that beautiful water as the ships go by.